Shells with Broccoli Rabe Pancetta is one of those pasta dishes with big flavor. And the first one is the broccoli rabe. What I did was I chopped it up in big pieces and blanched it for 2 minutes. You don't want to overcook it, otherwise it's going to get too soggy and it turns brown. This is a really classic Italian vegetable. And strangely, isn't even related to broccoli. But it's got great flavor, a little more bitter. And here's the trick in this dish. I'm going to save the water, and I'm going to cook the pasta in exactly the same water. So I've got 1 pound of large shells. I'm just going to pour them in. Boiling salted water. And cook those according to the directions on the package, probably around 8 to 10 minutes. Turn up the heat. Make sure they're boiling. Just give it a stir. I'm using shells for this dish because I love that the pancetta and the broccoli rabe get caught in that little opening in the shells. It's a great pasta for this. Okay, so while the pasta cooks, I'm going to cook the pancetta. And the key to this is I don't actually ask the butcher to slice it because they always slice it too thin. And I want a 1/4 inch dice, which means it has to be a 1/4 inch thick. So I just do it myself. So just do a nice dice. I'm going to cook the pancetta in a saute pan. Then when the pasta and the broccoli rabe are all cooked, they're going to all cook together in the saute pan. Pancetta is really Italian bacon, but it's a little smokier. Just think it has more flavor. Just delicious. Okay, I'm going to put this in. So that's a 1/2 pound of pancetta. Just going to cook that until the fat is rendered and starts to brown. It's going to take about 8 minutes to brown. Look how gorgeous this pancetta is. It's perfectly cooked, nice and crispy. Okay, I'm going to add 2 cloves of minced garlic. I'm just going to put it right in with the pancetta, just for a minute, just until you can smell it. You don't want it to burn. And some hot red pepper flakes. Give it a little heat. Remember, I said this isn't boring. Just give that a stir, just until you can smell the garlic. That's when you know it's done. Next is the broccoli rabe. I'm just going to add it into this pan. Add that in. And now the shells should be done. So let me just test one, make sure it's done. Perfect. You want them really al dente. And instead of draining it, I'm going to pick them up with a spider or a strainer, whatever you have, and put them right in here. And you want some of the water to come with it. The starch in the pasta water really helps thicken the sauce. So I'm just going to cook this all together. How pretty is this? And then when I serve it, I'm going to serve it with ricotta in the middle. It makes it creamy and lots of Parmesan cheese. So if it's dry, I'll add a little more pasta water. But you can see there's still a little water in the bottom of the pan, so it's fine. And you know, the pasta is going to absorb that liquid, and it's got all the flavor of the pancetta and the broccoli rabe in it. Okay, a little salt and pepper. A little pepper. Seasoning is so important. You can have the most delicious pasta dish, but if it doesn't have enough seasoning, it's really boring. Makes all the difference in the world. Okay, just until this all kind of melts together, just a minute, and it's all heated through. How gorgeous does this look? Okay, I'm gonna show you how I serve it up. So big bowl. This is 1 big serving of pasta. It's one thing, and it's got everything you need for dinner in it. Vegetables, pasta, pancetta. And then what I like to do is take like a scoop of ricotta, just fresh ricotta, and just put it right on top. And then as you eat it, you can just blend it all together. Kind of that hot and cold thing, creamy, and you have to have Parmesan cheese, lots of Parmesan, right around. And that is what I would call a weeknight dinner. It's really satisfying, it's really comforting. Bad day at the office, this will solve all your problems. It's so good, it's got so much flavor. So the last herb on my hit parade is, I think, the unsung hero of the herb garden, parsley. I love it. So I'm making pasta with pecorino and pepper and parsley. Say that fast. I'm going to start with 2 tablespoons of chopped parsley. Because parsley's a major ingredient in this recipe, I'm using flat leaf parsley. It really has more flavor, sort of that crisp, bitter flavor that you're looking for. I actually want to see the parsley in the dish, so you don't want it too finely chopped. Okay, now the pasta. So it's 8 ounces of tagliarelli. I figure about 4 ounces per person. It takes just 3 minutes to cook. I need 2 teaspoons of pepper. Actually, I want them really, really coarse. I want sort of fine bits and coarse bits, so you really bite into the peppercorns. And I'm putting it in a mortar and pestle, which allows you to sort of grind them by hand. I know it sounds crazy, but it's really good. So you want sort of big pieces and little pieces all ground up, just like that. Fantastic. Ooh, it already smells peppery. Next, 2 cups of tomatoes, cherry tomatoes. I'm using these little grape tomatoes. They're really sweet. Whatever's good in the market. The next major ingredient is pecorino. This has a very sharp, sort of Parmesan-like flavor. I need about a cup total of grated pecorino. Okay, I think the pasta's ready. First thing I'm gonna do is take a cup and just take out some of the pasta water so that if the pasta is a little too thick, I can always add that back in. Perfect pasta. Okay, you don't want it completely dry. You want a little moisture in it. Okay, I'm gonna bring it back right on the pot. I'm gonna mix the sauce right in the pot. Okay, now, need 2 tablespoons of cream, 1 tablespoon of butter, just toss it all together. Okay, now all the ingredients go in. 2 cups of tomatoes, makes it a fuller dish rather than just pasta. Then the parsley. How fast is this? And then the pecorino, which has that sort of bite of Parmesan, not nearly as expensive. About a half a cup. 2 teaspoons of pepper crushed. That's gonna give it so much flavor. And season it with salt. And it's gotten a little dry, so I'm gonna add some of the cooking water to it. Just toss it all together. Okay, that's done. Now I just have to take its beauty shot. Big bowl, lots of pasta. Wow, how beautiful. So, some tomatoes, some parsley. Fantastic. Big sprinkling of pecorino. A little bit of pepper. I think this would look good with a fork in it, like somebody's about to eat it. Take its picture, write everything up. Wow, looks even better in the photograph. Have to make sure it's really good. So my recipe's good and everybody can make good pasta. One of the perks of the job. Oh, it's so good. You can really taste the pecorino and it's spicy with pepper. That's a good dinner. So I'm gonna start with a nice piece of salmon. It's beautiful center cut salmon. The idea of this recipe is I'm gonna make a marinade, pour half of it over the salmon, and then after the salmon's grilled, pour the other half over. So it becomes both a marinade and a sauce, and it keeps it really moist and flavorful. So I'm gonna cut 5 or 6 slices. Just make sure you get all the way through the skin. I'm gonna take these slices and just put them in a dish, and I'm gonna marinate them in. This is about 3 pounds of salmon. You wanna figure about a half a pound per person. Okay, now I'm gonna make the marinade. So I have half a teaspoon of fresh chopped garlic in the bowl. Gives it a nice bite. I need 2 tablespoons of good Dijon mustard. That's about 2 tablespoons. 3 tablespoons of good soy sauce. And 6 tablespoons of good olive oil. I like California olive oil. I think it's got a good flavor, but it's not too strong for the sauce. I'm just gonna whisk this together. This sauce is particularly great because the mustard emulsifies it. So we're just gonna pour half on. Spread it out. Okay. Great. Grilled salmon is just done. Perfect. So you can either take the skin off or not, but I think it's just fine with the skin on. Really up to you. Okay. I'm gonna turn it over on this plate. Ooh, that looks good. I'm turning it over particularly. It looks nice that way, but I want the sauce to get into the meat of the salmon. This is a hot and messy job. I think 4 pieces will be perfect for 3 of us. Whoa. I'm just gonna put the sauce on next. Okay, I'm just gonna put the rest of the sauce on. Keeps the fish really moist and flavorful. Don't use the marinade from the raw fish. This is very retro food. And I'm starting with tuna, but not ordinary tuna. I'm starting with really good tuna. This is Spanish tuna. It's packed in olive oil, but it's big pieces, and it's absolutely delicious. It's moist. The flavor is fantastic. I really look for some kind of imported tuna in a glass jar. With all respect to American tuna, this is particularly good. Okay, the tuna's broken up. Not too much, but just enough. And now we're gonna add lots of good things. Some diced celery. I always use the hearts of celery. I just think it's tenderer than the outside. The outside can sometimes be a little stringy. Lots of scallions. Give it lots of onion flavor. Mix it all in. And dill. I know it doesn't normally go with a tuna fish sandwich, but it makes such a difference. About 3 tablespoons of fresh dill. Think of dill with seafood, but you don't normally put it in tuna salad. And I thought, let me try it. It was really good. It's got that kind of anisey flavor. Okay, fresh lemon juice. Kind of brightens everything. Salt and pepper. Give it a little heat. It's amazing how salt and pepper makes everything taste better. Okay, next is the mayonnaise. And what I'm gonna do is flavor the mayonnaise. About 3/4 of a cup of good grocery store mayonnaise. Next is anchovy paste, just 1 teaspoon. I know, there are a lot of people that don't like anchovy paste, but it just gives a little extra depth of flavor and you don't know it's anchovies. Okay, this is gonna go right into the tuna. I mean, so far, almost everything has been in your vegetable bin or your pantry. I'm gonna mix this in. This is just comfort food, weeknight dinner, perfect thing to make. My mother always used to make us tuna fish sandwiches when we were kids. Trust me, it didn't taste anything like this. These are so much better. Okay, tuna salad's done. I'm just gonna pile it on 4 pieces of toasted white bread. So that's the tuna, next is the cheese. So I've grated some Emmenthal, it's Swiss cheese. It's got a really good nutty flavor. I love it, and it's gonna be really good on this. I grated it so it melts a little better. I like the way it looks. I like the way it melts. I like the way it tastes. It's all good. I don't wanna see any orange slices on this. You want all the ingredients to have as much flavor as possible. Each thing has to earn its place in the recipe. Okay, into the oven under the broiler, just for 1 or 2 minutes, just until the cheese melts. I want the tuna still to be cool. Watch it really carefully. Okay, I think they're ready. Oh, this looks so good. Okay, tell me these aren't the best looking tuna sandwiches you've ever seen. I love these. And I'm not even a tuna melt aficionado, but these are really good. They look kind of gooey and cheesy and tuna fish. This is perfect retro food for a weeknight dinner. The ultimate comfort food. And because I can't ever leave well enough alone, I'm just gonna put a little microgreen on top. It's like a little peppery salad. It just kind of freshens the whole thing. I think you can find them in any grocery store now. It's like having a salad with your tuna melt. So I've got 4 center cut cod fillets. I like cod because it's kind of a meaty fish, but they're center cut because if you choose the end, it's going to be thin and they won't cook evenly. So 4 center cut cod fillets. I brush the bottom with olive oil, put the cod on top. I'm going to brush the top with olive oil, and that way they're just going to brown really nicely. You don't want something that's going to flake too much because it just doesn't have the same kind of substance to it. So olive oil, lots of salt and pepper. You want it to be really well seasoned, and some pepper. Okay, into the oven, 400 degrees for just 10 minutes. Okay, now for the topping. So I'm starting with Ritz crackers. Bet you didn't think I'd be cooking with those, but they're really buttery and they have lots of flavor. So I'm taking about 15 Ritz crackers, crumbling them up. I need cracker crumbs. Just break them up into the food processor. This is retro food, but made more modern. I really like the salty kind of buttery thing going with the fish. Okay, that's about a half a cup of Ritz cracker crumbs. If I can get it off. Right into a bowl. And to that, I'm going to add half a cup of panko crumbs and make it really crunchy. 2 tablespoons of minced parsley. 2 teaspoons of minced garlic. Give it lots of flavor. And some melted butter. Just pour it over. And this is going to make it brown and delicious because butter makes everything better, right? You always want some kind of oil or butter on the panko. Panko is actually Japanese bread flakes, and it's really popular now, and you can find it in any grocery store. I don't know what we did without it 10 years ago. Okay, I'm going to add some lemon zest to give it kind of a nice edge. About a teaspoon. Let's see. I always do it right over the thing that I'm zesting it into because it really catches the oils. Much more flavor. More flavor in the zest than in the juice, but we'll use the juice later. Okay, that should be about a teaspoon. Some salt. Give it a stir. As I said, baked fish can be kind of boring. It's this crumb topping that really gives it so much flavor. Actually, not only is it crumb topping, but it becomes part of the sauce. Okay, the first stage of the fish should be done in the oven. Perfect. Okay, so now I'm going to add about a quarter of a cup of dry white wine, and I'm going to pour it actually directly on the fillets so the flavor really gets into the fillets. Just like that. A couple of tablespoons of freshly squeezed lemon juice right on the fillets. Try and catch the seeds in your hand. And then I'm going to put the crumbs directly onto the fillets. Just pile them on. If some of them fall into the dish, it's not a problem because they'll really get incorporated in the sauce and flavor the sauce as well. It's a lot of crumbs, but it really gives the whole thing a lot of flavor. I think fish can be kind of scary to cook because you always think you're going to overcook it. But if you have fillets that are all the same thickness and they cook evenly, you don't have to worry about it. Okay, back into the oven, 400 degrees for exactly 12 minutes. It's going to be so good. So the fish should be ready. This looks great. See how it makes crispy topping and also really nice sauce? I love the way it looks. I love the way it tastes. And you can see that the sauce is kind of thickened by the panko and the Ritz crackers. Yum. So we'll just do a little lemon in the dish. One of the great things about this dish is the dish goes right to the table. Don't need to put it on a platter or anything. I just like to serve it with extra lemon, though. Just put it right in the dish. People can help themselves. I just need a little taste because it looks so good. Think anybody missed this little corner? Crispy crumbs, garlic and herbs, white wine and lemon sauce. This looks so good. The garlic and the herbs and the lemon and wine. Nothing boring about this fish dish. Everybody's going to love it. So the first thing I'm going to make for my lunch today, besides getting a facial, is a crunchy noodle salad with lots of Asian spices. So I'm going to start with thin pasta. I actually like thin spaghetti for it. It seems to absorb the flavor the best. Just put that in the bowl. Okay, the next thing is sugar snap peas, about 1 pound. I'm gonna salt the water and then blanch them for about 3 to 5 minutes, just until they're crisp tender. Okay, first scallions go into the salad, then the red peppers. And the next thing is the sugar snap peas. But I'm gonna shock them first, which means taking them out of the boiling water, putting them in ice water to stop the cooking. Really sets the color and it stops them from getting overcooked. Just takes a second. Perfect. Just make sure they're really cold, and they are. Right into the salad. It's really cold. Okay, now the sauce. It's got great flavor. Okay, the first thing is a cup of vegetable oil. I don't use olive oil here because I want the other Asian flavors to come out. So I wanted a clear oil with no flavor. Right into the bowl. 1/4 cup of rice wine vinegar. You can find this in the Asian section in your grocery store. Third of a cup of soy sauce. 3 tablespoons of toasted sesame oil. This isn't the clear one. This is the one that's the dark one, and it's got lots of flavor. 1 tablespoon of honey, give it a little sweetness. And 2 cloves of chopped garlic. So 1 teaspoon of grated ginger. And if you want it hotter, you can always put more in. Okay, and this is the good stuff, 1/2 cup of peanut butter. That's really what gives it sort of an Indonesian flavor. And you want to use smooth peanut butter. And then just whisk it all together. And you can make this sauce way in advance. And you can make the salad in advance, but not too far, because actually the soy sauce will break down the noodles. I think the last thing I'm going to put in the sauce is some toasted sesame seeds. I toasted them in a dry pan. Just put about 2 tablespoons in. I'm going to save the rest to decorate the salad. Okay, right on the salad. So this is the warm noodles. I use spaghetti, thin spaghetti. And the scallions, sugar snap peas, red peppers. Toss it all together. I like lots of sauce on it. Need some chopped parsley, just a rough chop. And then some more sesame seeds, so it looks like sesame. Pasta bolognese has to be one of the most popular Italian dishes, but sadly, it takes forever to make. Well, I've come up with a really easy version that you can actually make for a weeknight meal. I'll show you how to make it. So first, I've got 2 tablespoons of oil that I've heated in a pan. 1 pound of ground sirloin. I'm just gonna put it right in the pan. Start with 4 cloves of chopped garlic. That's about 4 teaspoons. And then oregano, which is sort of a classic, but I'm adding a lot, a tablespoon. Just like that. I always use dry oregano because I think fresh is too strong, but I grind it between my hands to release the oils. Then a little bit of hot pepper. I use about 1/4 teaspoon, but as much as you like. Okay, next is wine. I use a really dry Chianti. And it's gonna bring great flavor to this. And then I'm doing something else at the end with a little bit of wine. Right at the end, I throw a little bit of red wine into the bolognese before I serve it. And there's something about that wine that gives an incredible flavor. But right now, just 1 cup. Okay, next, tomatoes. Can't have bolognese without tomatoes. I use 1 28-ounce can of crushed tomatoes. And if you can get San Marzano tomatoes, it's a kind of tomato, not a brand. They're really the best Italian tomatoes. And to give it a little more intensity, I'm gonna put in 2 tablespoons of tomato paste. So that's really condensed tomato. Lots of salt and pepper, 1 tablespoon of salt. And then 1½ teaspoons of pepper. And this is gonna cook for about 10 minutes. Bring it to a boil, let it simmer away on top of the stove, and let all those flavors cook together. I'm gonna add a few more things to the bolognese sauce. 1/4 teaspoon of nutmeg. It's an unusual spice, but it really goes well with tomatoes. 1/4 cup of fresh chopped basil, right into the pasta. I'm gonna add a little bit of cream, just 1/4 cup of cream, just to give it a little richness. I never knew anything that cream hurt. And 1/4 cup of red wine. This is where I add it at the end. And it just gives it a little edge. If you're worried about not cooking off all the alcohol, you certainly don't have to add it. You can really smell all the spices and the wine. This is just gonna simmer away for about 8 to 10 minutes. In the meantime, I'm gonna get the fresh Parmesan ready. You want the pasta to drain, but you don't want it to be really dry. How good is that? I'm gonna pour all the sauce on it. Now tell me that doesn't look good. 1/4 cup of Parmesan cheese on top, or as much as you like. I'm gonna put a little basil on top. I'd love to know what the ingredients are. Well, fresh basil's got a nice sort of like spicy quality to it, so that's gonna be fantastic. Give it a big toss, and this is why the orecchiette is so great, because the sauce just gets caught in all those little shells. I think I need a big bowl. A little more Parmesan cheese. Big spoon. And I'd say, buon appetito. Ooh, this looks good. Weeknight Bolognese, that is delicious. So first I have a big pot of water to a rolling boil. I put a lot of salt in it. You want the salt to get into the pasta so it flavors it. Okay, and next, Capellini, 1 pound. Capellini is a little thinner than spaghetti, and a little thicker than angel hair. And it cooks in like 4 minutes. So you want to put it right into the boiling water. Just swirl it around. And just give it a big stir. And that'll keep it from sticking. Okay, next the sauce. Not gonna believe how easy this is. So it's a 1/2 pound of butter. I know it's a lot of butter, but it's really good. The zest of 2 lemons, and I'm gonna zest it right over the sauce, because then the oils from the lemon zest get into the sauce. So you just want that little bit of bright yellow around the lemon. You don't want the white pith underneath, because that's bitter. This is a great dish. I make this all the time for New Year's Eve, because we love to go out, have drinks, have fun in Paris, take a little tour, and then come back and have dinner at midnight. And I don't want to start making a long, complicated dish. So what I do is I make this, and literally in 5 minutes, dinner's on the table, lemon capellini with a big dollop of caviar on top. That sounds very festive New Year's Eve in Paris, doesn't it? Okay, that's one. And now one more. You know, I've seen so many recipes for lemons where they say, okay, you want a 1/2 cup of lemon juice and then lemon zest. But by the time you've juiced the lemons, you can't zest it. So always zest the lemons first before you juice them. So this is going to be the zest of 2 lemons and then the juice of 2 lemons. This is really one of my favorite dishes of all time. It was in my first book, the Barefoot Contessa cookbook, and I've made it ever since. Okay, that's that. Now I'm going to do the juice of 2 lemons. In fact, I got this recipe on a New Year's Eve. I went to somebody's house and they were making it. I remember after a really long day at the store, I arrived at these people's house for New Year's Eve dinner, and they were cooking, and I kind of joined in just to be social. And the next thing I knew, everybody had left for the living room, and there I was making dinner for everybody. I thought, well, at least I got a great recipe out of it. Freshly squeezed lemon is just the best. Love my little juicer. Okay, this just goes right into the sauce. 2 teaspoons of salt. One teaspoon of pepper. And just swirl that around. Make sure it's really nicely mixed. And let's see if the pasta's ready. Got to clear the decks a little bit. Whoa, runaway lemon. So I'm just going to cook this. Normally it cooks for 4 minutes for al dente, but what I'm going to do is cook it for 3 minutes and then cook it in the sauce for another minute. Missy Robbins from Missy, the restaurant, pasta restaurant, taught me this. Perfect. So I'm going to just lift it out, let it drain a little bit, but then take some of the pasta water and put it into the sauce. And the starch in the pasta water thickens the sauce. And then I have lots of pasta water. Just to add back in if I need to. Missy Robbins is just an incredible restaurateur in Brooklyn. She owns 2 restaurants, Lilia and Missy. They both have unbelievable pasta that she makes. Think this is enough pasta? This is gonna be so good. It's basically lemon, butter, and pasta, but the total is so much better than the sum of its parts. And then I'm just gonna toss it together. I mean, Missy tosses it in the air, but I'm gonna be a little more conservative. I don't think it'll be all over the kitchen and me if I do that. So just toss it all together. Just keep tossing it for about a minute. So all the butter and the lemon and the zest and the salt and pepper get absorbed into the pasta. And then as it sits, it's just gonna get a little dry, so I'm gonna put a little of the pasta water in. Wanna make sure it's really moist. You don't want it dry. Just toss it together. I wish you could smell this. It's just unbelievable. That sort of fresh, citrusy lemon is so good. And butter. I mean, how bad can that be? Okay, I'm gonna show you how I plate it. So, I've got an Italian plate. I thought that would be pretty. And let me see if I can do it the way Missy does it. She takes a big thing of pasta. Whoa. So what Missy does is twirl it on the plate and your hand, so it ends up being a nice little pile. I don't know, hers looks better, but mine's still good. Oh, runaway lemon, and then I'm gonna do a little lemon zest on the top, just so you know it's lemon. It's that last hit of lemon that you really taste when you taste the pasta. And then everybody knows it's lemon. And I think maybe I'm just gonna do a little wedge of lemon on this plate. How's that? A little salt. A little pepper. And that's lemon capellini. Looks so good I may have to try it. Why do I think I'm gonna be wearing this by the time I'm done trying this? Just to twirl it around. This is not my forte. It's so good. It's really zesty from the lemon zest and juice. It's perfectly seasoned. That's an amazing pasta. It's crazy good. I don't think there's any dish I've made more than Parmesan chicken. So for a mystery guest, I have no idea what they like. I'm gonna try something really safe. Everybody loves this. So the first thing I'm gonna do is make the crust for the chicken. I'm gonna do a cup of flour, teaspoon of pepper, and a teaspoon of salt. Just gonna mix that all together. So it's gonna be flour, egg, and breadcrumbs. I need 2 eggs. About a tablespoon of water. Just gonna beat this together. And then the breadcrumbs. I need a cup of breadcrumbs. I use seasoned breadcrumbs. You don't have to make your own. Make sure they're fresh, though, that they haven't been sitting in the pantry for a long time. And Parmesan cheese, which is why it's Parmesan chicken. So for the Parmesan, I'm just gonna use actually ground Parmesan. And for this, it has to be very finely ground so that it distributes itself really well on the crust. So I'm just gonna chop this up, put it in the food processor, and then just grind it up. How fast is that? I just need a half a cup right into the breadcrumbs. So I'm just gonna mix that together. Now for the chicken. And you pound it so it's tenderized and it's actually very even. So this is time for rolling pin. So just gonna pound it really thin. Okay, that's done. Time to cook the chicken. Tablespoon of butter, tablespoon of olive oil, and I'm going to take each chicken breast. First dip it in the flour. Make sure it's completely coated. Shake it off. Dip it in the egg and water. And then dip it in the breadcrumbs and Parmesan cheese. Okay, right into the pan. I'm going to cook it for about 2 to 3 minutes on each side. Okay, this is nice and brown on this side. I'm just going to turn it over. Oh, does that look good? Okay, perfect. Browned on that side. And you can tell if the chicken bounces back, it's perfectly done. Onto the sheet pan. Okay, into the oven, very low oven, 200 degrees, and that'll stay warm until we're ready for dinner. Well, that's a crowd I don't want to leave for too long, so I'm glad I did the Parmesan chicken in advance. So the first thing I'm going to do is make lemon vinaigrette. I need 1/4 cup of fresh lemon juice. That's it. 1/2 cup of olive oil. 1/2 teaspoon of salt. 1/2 teaspoon of pepper. And just whisk it. Nicely washed lettuce. Glad I washed it in advance. Just pour the vinaigrette on. And that's gonna go in the chicken. So the hot chicken and the cold salad, it's just a great combination. All I have to do is plate up the chicken, cold salad on the top, shaving of Parmesan, and I'm back for the fun. First thing I'm gonna make is mac and cheese, which is traditional mac and cheese with the volume turned up. So to make real mac and cheese, as opposed to the stuff in the box, first thing I want to do is make a bechamel sauce, which is really a fancy word for white sauce. So I'm going to heat 1 quart of milk, and then in another pan, I'm going to melt 6 tablespoons of butter, and add 1/2 cup of flour, and cook them together for about 2 minutes while I'm whisking it. You don't want the butter to burn. This is the kind of sauce you use in a gratin, which sounds fancy in French, but it's perfect for mac and cheese. Okay, now I just want to slowly add the hot milk, and you'll see the whole thing becomes a really nice, thick white sauce. Add it whisking. Actually, I think you can just, whoa, that's hot. How about forget slowly, just dump it all in. Okay, there, that's fast. And now off the heat, just gonna add some flavorings. Tablespoon of salt. It seems like a lot, but remember we're putting a lot of pasta in this. 1/2 teaspoon of pepper, and 1/2 teaspoon of nutmeg, which is sort of a classic gratin seasoning. I thought would be really good with mac and cheese. Just whisk it together. I actually think nutmeg brings out the flavor in the cheese, which brings me to the next thing, cheese. Lots of good cheese. So the first thing I'm going to do is put in 12 ounces of good Swiss Gruyere. It's a really nutty cheese, and it's just wonderful in mac and cheese. And I'm just going to take off the rind. And then I'll show you a really fast, I mean, you can do this by hand with a grater if you want to, but if you have a food processor, it's really fast. So you take the grating disc, just like this, and then there's a post that goes on it. That goes in the food processor. And then the top goes on. It's a little bit of a process, but when you see how fast it is, you'll know why. Oh, isn't that amazing? One more piece. Okay, little piece left over for the cook. The second cheese I use is cheddar, and I'm going to use 8 ounces of good cheddar. So I'm just going to cut this in half. I love good cheddar. It's just sharp and got lots of flavor. And do the same thing. Last piece. Now that would have taken a lot of time if I'd done it by hand. Lots of cheese. Okay, then I'm going to put the cheese into the sauce. A lot of cheese in this sauce. But that's why it tastes so good. Okay, just stir it in. You don't want the heat on in this process because you want the cheese to melt when it's mixed with the macaroni. You don't want to burn the cheese. Burnt cheese, but. So I'm going to combine this now with macaroni, which I cooked. Actually, I use cavatappi. You can certainly use macaroni, but cavatappi's like that, and I just thought it's a little more special for a party. So put that in a bowl. Add the sauce. It's about a pound of macaroni or cavatappi. Okay, mix that all together. Boy, this looks like enough for a crowd. In my experience, everybody loves it, so they eat a lot. So I'm going to pour this into a dish, and I'm going to do sliced tomatoes and breadcrumbs on the top. Gives a nice little crunch and delicious flavor with it. So it really is macaroni and cheese, but for a party. Okay, into the dish. Now, how bad could that be? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take probably two tomatoes. I'll see how they take the little cores out. These are good Israeli tomatoes, and they're on the vine. And I cut them with a bread knife. It really helps. When this all bakes together, the tomatoes get baked into the mac and cheese. It's just wonderful. So just right on top, really simple. And one trick is you never want to put tomatoes in the refrigerator. It really destroys the flavor. Perfect. Okay, now breadcrumbs. So maybe about 5 slices of bread. Just cut the crusts off, cut these in pieces, and then put them in the food processor with a steel blade, and just whir it up. Just do it enough so they're little crumbs, but not so it's all stuck together. 2 tablespoons of butter. Okay, just melt that. Pour in the breadcrumbs. Just mix them together. The butter really helps the breadcrumbs brown. Want a nice brown top. Okay, right on top of the tomatoes and the mac and cheese. I'm going to bake it at 375 for 30 minutes, and it's going to be bubbly and delicious. And next I'm going to make shortcakes. Real old-fashioned food. And I think Greg's going to love it.